college basketball fans? Welcome into another edition of the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast. I'm Brandon Jadich. I'm your host for today. Busy weekend, of course, as usual. We're starting to finally see who some of the fraud teams are. That's going to highlight our show today. But before we get into that, let's talk about our poll question today. Go ahead, go down on whether you're on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify, and answer our poll question, please. The question is, what team out of these two teams is on the heaviest upset alert in the first round of March Madness? The teams are Wisconsin or Dayton. These are two of the fraud teams we're going to talk about. Both will probably be in between the 5 to 7 seed range, believe it or not. Yes, I know Wisconsin has lost a ton in a row. Dayton really hasn't beaten anybody, but they're going to be in the 5 to 7 range based on their resume. So go vote. Who do you think? Maybe it's both. We'll even throw a both in there, or neither. We'll throw a little bit of everything in there. While you're down there, please hit the subscribe button. Keep us growing this. We really appreciate it. Smash the like button while we're down there so you know we know that you're here. While commenting on the poll, comment, vote, whichever one you want to do. It's easy enough. Let's talk about what today's episode is going to look like. We're going to get into some of the results. We had 5 ranked-on-ranked matchups that we talked about. Then, of course, the highlight of our show, Fraud Alert. We're going to rank some of these teams on how fraudulent they may be. Then, of course, we're not just going to stay negative. We're going to get into some positive. We're starting to see some contenders separate themselves who might be leaning towards they have a solid chance of winning a national title this year. We're going to talk about some of the conference outlooks, how some of the teams are faring in terms of their conference, some crawling, some climbing. We'll see how some of these teams are panning out. Then the new AP poll was just released it was about 5 or 6 hours ago. We're currently in the midst of Duke taking on NC State. So we're not going to talk about some of those games, but we are going to talk about the weekday games to watch: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Tuesday and Wednesday are absolutely loaded, by the way. So we're going to get into some of those games with some of the early KenPom lines to help you on your betting advice. But let's start with some of the results. Let's start with one of the fraud teams we're going to talk about. Remember, all the way back to Friday, I know it was a couple days ago, but number 21 Dayton at the time, they went to Loyola Chicago, got beat 77-72. Now, it's rare for a team in the A10 to get an at-large bid, basically. They're pretty much a lock as of right now. I'm not sure I could consider them all the way a lock. Yeah, you know what? They're a lock. But they just quite frankly haven't beaten anybody. Now, they were the darlings early in the year for mid-major teams, just climbing up the AP poll. They weren't losing games, but they're in third place in their conference right now. They're behind Loyola Chicago and Richmond. Dayton, they're still, their resume is good enough because these losses that they're suffering aren't bad, but they're teams that you should be beating. The Loyola Chicagos, the Richmonds. Deron Holmes is great for Dayton, but enough talking about Dayton. Let's move on to Saturday. That's one of the teams that obviously in our poll, though, so we had to mention them first. Let's move on to some of the top 25 matchups that went on throughout the nation. Let's start with the big one. It was number 4 Tennessee visiting number 14 Alabama. It was important because it was the battle for first place in the SEC. Tennessee eventually won the game 81-74, which means Tennessee now sole control of first in the SEC, and quite frankly, probably a 1 seed right now. We moved them up to the 1 seed in our bracketology. It's between them, Arizona, and North Carolina. I think it's Tennessee as of right now. But what they really showed in this game, why they are a true contender, is because they won without Dalton Knecht playing great. This was one of his rough performances. He had 13 points, 5 of 14 shooting. Be a decent game for anyone else, not up to Dalton Knecht standards, but in this one, it just showed that they don't need Dalton Knecht to be a superstar to win against quality opponents. Zakai Ziegler, he led them 18 points. He was only 5 of 18 from the field, so not his best performance either, but still impressive for Tennessee to sneak out a win. They won it on the defensive end, obviously, only holding this number 1 KenPom offense in Alabama to only 74 points, so impressive stuff there. Josiah Jordan-James, he added a double-double, 11 points, 13 rebounds. Good stuff for him from the Tennessee big man. Alabama's now 20-9. They dropped to a 4 seed. Yes, you might think 20-9 doesn't scream 4 seed. They have, all their losses have come to great teams. So we did drop them. Actually, Duke moved up, and we moved Alabama to the 4. I'm going to find it hard to take Alabama past the Sweet 16. I believe they're a little bit fraudulent. I don't think they have the defense or just anytime they play up against another quality opponent. We saw at Tennessee. We saw they played well against Purdue, but they don't win the close games. They refuse to win them. Saw them get blitzed by Auburn. Mark Sears, he led Alabama with 22 points, but I think this team is a little bit they're definitely on the fraud side as of right now. Moving on. Number 7 Kansas went and visited number 15 Baylor. Baylor took them down 82-74. The game was not that close, believe it or not. It was Baylor the entire way from the second half on. Let's first give Baylor just tons of credit, and Scott Drew a ton of credit before we get into Kansas. I mean, he has done an incredible job with this team. They were trending remember, they were one of the last undefeated teams for a while. Then they started trending in the wrong direction, and they have gotten so much better. A lot better thanks to Scott Drew. Ray J. Dennis has gotten so much better. Jacoby Walter obviously just continuing to get better. Ray J. Dennis, 19 points, 10 assists in this one. Eves Missy, also one of those, gotten so much better. Jaden Nunn has been knocking down shots left and right. Along Jalen Bridges, he's having a great year. He's one of the more underappreciated experienced players. He's kind of controlling this Baylor team, and they're winning games. They're up to 10-6 in the Big 12 now. For Kansas, this might be Kansas's worst team of all time under Bill Self, and I'll tell you why. This is 7 losses in the Big 12 for the first time ever in the Bill Self era. The roster that we've had our concerns for a while. DeJuan Harris, he played great in this one. He just needs to shoot a little bit more. He's so quick and shifty. I get he's a pass-first point guard, great on the defensive end, but with this roster, he's going to have to get some points at some point. He did in this game, but he's going to need some more. Dickinson and McCullough. McCullough did play, by the way. He was back in the lineup, which was actually unexpected. They're both obviously really good. They're good players. KJ Adams has been solid. Furphy's pretty good. He's a freshman. He's learning, but he's really the impact guy. If he can knock down a bunch of shots, they're winning. If he can't, they're losing. Kansas rough on the road this year. The reason, just the rest of the team stinks. Quite frankly, they have zero bench whatsoever. Elmarco Jackson actually had a good game in this one, believe it or not. He still just makes a good game for him was scoring 8 points. He makes no impact on the game. Nick Timberlake is just rough, just not what we expected. Hate to talk down on him, but just rough. It was supposed to be a fight between Furphy, Timberlake, and Elmarco Jackson. You got 3 good guys to get in the lineup as that fifth spot. And quite frankly, I mean, Furphy's been solid, I can say, but the other two just you didn't think that they would just stink, and they do, unfortunately. Christian Brown also coming off the bench. He hustles, just not real athletic. So Kansas fraudulent right now. I wouldn't take them past the Sweet 16. Can't believe I'm saying that. They have no bench. It's going to hurt them eventually in March. Let's move on. Let's move on to the huge bubble game of the day. It was a 10 o'clock tip. Hopefully you stayed up for it. It was number 23 Gonzaga visiting number 17 St. Mary's. St. Mary's came in as the only undefeated team in conference play in college basketball. Gonzaga went in and beat them 72-57. I'll admit when I was wrong. I was wrong about this Gonzaga team. I saw them a lot early in the year, and I quite frankly just didn't think they were good. I didn't think Ryan Nembhard was good. I thought Graham Ike was solid, but not star level. But I'm saying it right now, Gonzaga's back. They dominated this entire game. Speaking of Graham Ike and Ryan Nembhard, incredible stuff from that duo. Graham Ike, 24 points, 10 rebounds. Ryan Nembhard, 20 points, 10 assists. Incredible stuff for Mark Few. He turned this program around. I don't know why I ever doubted Mark Few. Don't ever let me do that again. He is an incredible coach. His streak is going to continue in March Madness. They're probably a lock as of now. I think they'll get the double bye if they lose, and it'll probably be against San Francisco, I'm guessing, unless San Francisco were to get upset in the WCC tournament. Gonzaga and St. Mary's will get a double bye, so they'll be playing. It should be a 2-3 game and then a 1-4 game. It would be Gonzaga versus San Francisco in that, and even if they lost that, it's like a quad 2 loss. So they should be fine. I mean, I think they've done enough to. They got 3 quad 1 wins now with Kentucky, San Francisco, and St. Mary's. The resume between St. Mary's and Gonzaga, they're very close. I actually probably give the better resume to Gonzaga as of right now. It's close. St. Mary's has 2 quad 3 losses, which is hurting them. They're better in quad 1, but Gonzaga with no losses outside of Q2 is really better. I would probably have Gonzaga on the 7 line, believe it or not, just because they're so high in the net. St. Mary's probably on the 8 line, so they're right there. Both teams looking to make a little bit of a run come March. Good stuff for Gonzaga. That should be a 2-bid WCC this year. Moving on, let's move on to number 5 Marquette visiting number 12 Creighton. Creighton won the game 89-75, but Marquette was without Tyler Kolek and Oso Ighodaro. Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, and Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton. They may be the best 1-2-3 combo in America. Creighton's starting to put the world on notice right now. They're playing extremely well. Shireman, he had a crazy stat line, 26 points, 16 rebounds, knocked down 6 threes. Trey Alexander also had a double-double, 18 points, 11 assists. Kalkbrenner, 19 points, efficiently 9 of 12 from the field. Great stuff from Creighton. I know Marquette was without their 2 best players, but I was actually surprised. Marquette hung in there. It was like a one-possession game with 4 or 5 minutes left. Impressive stuff. Cam Jones is really good. Shout out to him. He had 23 points, 9 of 16 shooting. He's actually Marquette's leading scorer, believe it or not. I know you would think it's Kolek or Ighodaro, but Cam Jones very underappreciated. But Creighton right now, they're clicking at the right time. They're playing extremely, extremely well. I think they're like 35-1 on some sports books to win the national championship. Maybe consider that one. I don't think Marquette is a fraud. I think they're good. They're without their 2 best players, and they hung in there. That kind of showed a lot. But a good win there for Creighton, and Creighton up to comfortably in the 3 seed category. Let's move into the SEC. The last ranked-on-ranked matchup we're going to talk about was number 24 Florida visiting number 18 South Carolina. Florida actually led by 10 in the second half. Looked like they were going to go in there and pull it off. But South Carolina fought back, won the game 82-76. Michi Johnson just got hot. He had 25 points, 10 of 15 shooting. 21 of his points were in the second half. The metrics still do not like South Carolina. They're not high at the net, not high at KenPom, not high at Torvik. They keep winning games. They keep proving it wrong. They're just one of those teams that defies the metrics. They're a good basketball team. We'll see if they can keep it up come March. I really hope they do. Lamont Paris continues his reign for Coach of the Year. Incredible stuff. Let's keep it in the SEC. Let's talk about Kentucky. We love talking about Kentucky. So they hosted Arkansas, and both teams scored in triple figures. Hint, hint. Number 16 Kentucky coming into the game, put up 111 points on Arkansas. Now, it's something we've been seeing every single game just about for Kentucky. Them and Alabama, just incredible to watch on the offensive end. But they did allow Arkansas to 102 points. 111 to 102, the final score. With that being, Arkansas has not been good. Let me say that first. They're a bad basketball team. They're sub 500 right now. I will not be able to trust Kentucky to win 4 games in March to make the Final Four. I don't think they can do it. In this game, they had 7 players in double figures. It's incredible what their offense can do. Their ceiling is so high. I'm not saying they're not national championship contenders because their talent is just like that. What year was that where they were the 8 seed? The Harrison twins made all the way to the national championship game. They have the talent to do that this year. They're probably a 5 seed right now. They just play absolutely no defense. And if their offense goes cold at all, I don't find them winning 4 games to make it to the Final Four. Now, believe what you want. As I said, they are title contenders. They're that good. They have that much talent. They can figure it out on the defensive end, but you can't give up 102 points to the worst Arkansas team we've seen in forever. Good win for Kentucky. They fought back. They were actually down in the second half, believe it or not, but fought back at Rupp, won the game. No harm done, but man, they got to figure it out on that defensive end. Stay in the SEC for just one more game. Mississippi State visited number 11 Auburn. Auburn won the game 78-63. Mississippi State actually beat them earlier in the year, if you remember that. But Jonai Broome, he led Auburn, 17 points in this game. The leader for Mississippi State was Josh Hubbard, the freshman. He is incredible, by the way. 23 points, 6 threes. With that being said, I love Josh Hubbard. I think Tolo Smoot's a good player. I will not be taking Mississippi State to win a game in March this year. I just don't think they have it this year. They're somewhat talented. I just don't think the pieces have really been put together. Maybe they'll win one game. I do not take them to go past the round of 32. They'll probably be an 8 or 9 seed. I would not take them as that upset over Purdue, UConn, Houston, or Tennessee or Arizona, whoever that turns out to be. But let's talk about Auburn a little bit. Some people don't realize they still only have one Quadrant 1 win. They're 1-7 in Quadrant 1. 0 losses outside of Quadrant 1. Their loss, they did have 2 quadrant wins at one point. I mean, obviously they beat Alabama. That's a Quadrant 1 win. And then they had where did they have another one? Was it Florida? I can't remember who their other. They had two quadrant one wins, but they lost another one, or someone dropped out of the top 30. So it's not just one quadrant one win for Auburn right now. Real interesting. But let's talk about let's compare their resume to Florida. Just to everyone's been saying, yeah, Auburn's sixth in the net. They should be a 2 or 3 seed. They shouldn't be. They're 1-7 in quadrant one. Let's compare them to Florida. Florida's 3-8 in quadrant one. Now, as we mentioned, Auburn doesn't have any losses outside of quadrant one. Florida only has one loss outside of quadrant one, and it was a quad two loss. So they have 3 quad one wins, 1 quad two loss, compared to 1 quad one win with 0 quad two losses. The resumes aren't that different, and Florida is hovering on like the 6 or 7 line right now. So there's Auburn's hovering on the 4 or 5 line as of right now. But it'd be fun to see if Auburn ends up a 5 and Kentucky ends up a 5. Obviously, some teams that can make some noise. With that being said, though, I'm going to say this. It might be a little bit of a bold prediction. I think the SEC has Final Four contenders, maybe more than anyone in the country. I think Kentucky and Tennessee for sure. Not quite sold on Auburn yet. I really don't think, outside of maybe Tennessee, that they really have any title contenders. Tennessee, they obviously have the firepower. They have the offense. They have the defense. Anyone else, I don't see Auburn as a title contender. I quite frankly don't see Kentucky. They 100% could do it, but as of right now, I do not see them as a title contender. I don't see Alabama as a title contender. I don't see South Carolina or Florida as a title contender, quite frankly. But they have some teams that can make some noise. I could look up and see Florida in the Final Four, but it's a lot tougher to win 6 games than it is to win 4 in a row in March. I think Tennessee, yeah, I mean, obviously, if it was the field or Tennessee, I'm taking the field, but Tennessee's got it about them. Everyone else, not so much, not so much. They have talent, but I won't be taking anyone outside of maybe Tennessee, and I probably won't even take Tennessee to make the Final Four, quite frankly, but could definitely look up and see them there. Let's move on. Let's move into the Big Ten. Number 13, Illinois went to Wisconsin and beat them 91-83 because Wisconsin is just horrible right now, just absolutely horrible. Whoever they play in the first round, take them. I would take them 100%. I don't care if they were put up against Quinnipiac for whatever reason. I would take them. Wisconsin refuses to win games. I encourage you to watch one of their games. You'll feel the same way. You watch them, you're like, oh my goodness, how is this team in consideration for a 1 seed earlier in the year? They force shots, they can't shoot. AJ Storr forces so many shots. Chucky Hepburn the same way. Storr and Crowd down low are pretty good, I think. I think they're solid, but they just make about the worst decision you can possibly make. They're probably a 6 seed right now, believe it or not. They might drop to a 7, but oh man, if they play an 11 or a 10 seed, I bet the 11 or 10 seed will be favored. Now, Wisconsin is not on the bubble. You might ask why they're on the bubble. They have racked up quad 1 and quad 2 wins early in the year, but not anymore. They're bad. They're horrible. Do not take them. The story, let's talk about Illinois a little bit though. Marcus Domask, he's from Wisconsin. He went back for a homecoming game. He was just the difference maker in this game, and he's been the difference maker kind of all season for Illinois. Yeah, a lot of talk about Terrence Shannon. Marcus Domask has been great. He had 31 points on 12 of 11 shooting. Terrence Shannon did add 23 points, but Marcus Domask is that difference maker. He's a post-up kind of guy down low, kind of the little bit of a Jalen Brunson look. He can shoot the three. He can do just about everything. He is extremely good. I encourage everyone to watch him. Illinois, this is actually Illinois' best win on the year, believe it or not, in terms of metric-wise. We had that neutral win over FAU, but a win at Wisconsin. As mentioned, Wisconsin is still high because of all those big wins early in the year, but I mean, they're not good. But Illinois, good win. Let's move on. Michigan State visited number 2 Purdue. Purdue won the game 82-74. 3 losses in a row for Michigan State. 2 of them were at home, Iowa State and Ohio State. But they did play Purdue pretty well in this game. I mean, obviously Michigan State has talent. Zach Edey just way too much though. 32 points, 11 rebounds. Braden Smith, he had 23 points, 9 rebounds, excuse me. He was 4 of 4 from 3. He's been really impressive this year. He's made a huge step. Purdue they're officially a lock for a 1 seed right now. Think what you want about them, but their resume is incredible. They could lose out and they would still, not saying they'd be the top overall seed, but they would be a 1 seed, no doubt. For Michigan State, they're fighting around the 10 seed range. They're still in 17-12 on the year, not very good. Luckily, some of their losses have aged pretty well, but 10 seed hovering close to an 11 seed. we'll see. They got to take care of business coming down the stretch. They got a home game against Northwestern that they're going to need. Speaking of Northwestern, let's talk about them, where they just lost a home game to Iowa. Iowa went in and beat them 87-80. Big quadrant one win for Iowa. Iowa is now, they moved on to the bubble. They didn't move into the field per se, but they are on the bubble as of right now. They're sneaky good. They got a trio: Peyton Sanford, Josh Dix, Tony Perkins. They got a big three there. They're pretty good. Josh Dix had 24 in this one. Peyton Sanford had 23. Tony Perkins dished out 14 assists. That's really impressive. They got a nice little squad there. For Northwestern, they're just fine. They're probably still on the 8 line as of right now. It's kind of a rough loss, but I fully expect to see them in the tournament. Let's move into the ACC. A lot of bubble talk in the ACC. Let's start with Virginia. Visited number 10 Duke. Duke won the game 73-48. Yes, another game for Virginia in the 40s. Their offense is so bad. Sad that Virginia kind of gave people, at least Virginia fans, hope. They got on people's radar. They were up to battling for the top of the ACC. And now they're just proving again how just horrible they are on offense. This was another half for them where they scored under 20 points in the first half. It was 40-18. Yikes. Filipowski, he led with 21.7 rebounds. Would have put Virginia on the upset alert, but it would be a upset if they were to beat anyone in March. They're probably hovering on. They're still in, believe it or not. I've been getting so many comments. They're like, how can they possibly be in? They get blown out because their resume is actually not that bad. They're probably an 11 seed. I would also encourage whoever they play. That would be interesting. What if we got a Wisconsin-Virginia matchup in the first round? Yikes. Battle of mid. That would be ugly. Don't even know who I'd take in that one. I don't know if I could even watch that game. Let's move on. Wake Forest. They just can't get it done. Lost at Virginia Tech 87-76. They led in the first half too. After a half, they looked good, and then Virginia Tech outscored them 50-30 in the second half. Huge opportunity gone. Wake Forest, they're still pretty good in the net, but they lack a resume. I think they're on the outside looking in as of right now. Maybe not even in the first 4 out, maybe the next 4 out. It's close, but they're struggling right now. They're going to have to pick up some big wins, maybe make a run in the ACC tournament. Last game in the ACC was a rivalry game. NC State went to number 9 North Carolina. North Carolina won the game 79-70. North Carolina State actually led by 8 at the half, but UNC came back. UNC hasn't been playing great as of late. Guess it's better to get that rough skid out of the way now, but they've been struggling a little bit. Harrison Ingram led. He had 22 points. They're still winning the games that they should, but just not as dominant as they should. Like, saw them against Miami and even Virginia, and now NC State kind of struggling with all 3 teams who aren't great, but they'll probably be in the 1-2. I don't see them dropping below a 3 seed in March. They're probably our second 2 seed as of right now, so they should be just fine. Hopefully they can get it figured out before March, though. Moving on to the Big 12, let's talk about the number 1 team in the country. Houston went to Oklahoma, barely won 87-85 thanks to a Jamal Shed buzzer beater. Great stuff, Jamal Shed. This was a Kelvin Sampson return game to Oklahoma. He coached at Oklahoma for a time. This was a very high-scoring game for a Houston game. You don't see this a lot. Oklahoma played them well. Just fell a little bit short. This would have been huge. This might have bumped Oklahoma up to like a 7 seed, quite frankly, but they're probably hovering around the 9 seed range right now. Houston got the job done. They win ugly, which is good. Let's move on to the bad beat of the night. TCU, BYU. This was a rough beat for those who had TCU +7. Yes, I did. Yes, I'm still salty about it. TCU 75, BYU 87 final score. TCU led 46-29 at the half. Do the math, +7. They were +7 in this game. That was one of the higher bets. Like a lot of money was on TCU +7 around the nation. That was heavily favored. And so do the math. You can lose by 20 as long as you do not lose by 25 in 20 minutes in the second half. Then you cover 7 points. You should win the game when you're up 17 at the half. But let alone cover 7. Yeah, you should probably do that until BYU outscores you 58-29 in the second half. Just horrible stuff from Jamie Dixon's squad. Yes, I am. I'm going to mention it again. I'm still salty about it. That's a horrible beat. You can't do that. It didn't even come down to the stretch where you're like, oh yeah, they still could have a backdoor +7. It wasn't happening. Just ugly stuff. BYU good for them. They have some serious firepower. Traore came off the bench, scored 21 to lead BYU. This team is really good. They're up to fourth, tied for fourth in the Big 12 right now. They've got some stuff going for them. Where don't be surprised if you look up and they're in the Elite Eight in March. Speaking of a team that was in the Elite Eight in March last year, Kansas State visited Cincinnati, got beat 72-74 Cincinnati. Kansas State actually was higher up in terms of the bubble than Cincinnati coming in, and they had a huge shot. Like a Kansas State win at Cincinnati obviously has a much bigger outcome than Cincinnati winning at home against Kansas State. Kansas State with the opportunity here, but they led late, and then Simas Lukosius, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, hit a huge go-ahead three with just a couple seconds left. This just basically ended Kansas State's hopes of getting an at-large bid unless there's a miracle or they make a run all the way to the conference championship game. Tough loss for Jerome Tank's squad. Cincinnati actually led big in the game, and then Kansas State fought all the way back, took the lead. Simas Lukosius just ended their chances. Good win for Cincinnati. They're still not really close. They're probably next four out, maybe in the next four out, but both teams are going to need kind of a miracle coming down the stretch. Other games around the nation we just got to briefly discuss. New Mexico lost again at Boise State, 89-79. Boise State tied for first in the Mountain West with Utah State. Good stuff for them. New Mexico, they can't really pull it together. We have them in the first four right now, still in, but hanging on by a thread. And then Oregon went to number 6 Arizona, and Arizona put a beat down on them, 103-83. They led by 21 at the half. It wasn't close the entire way. I've been big on Arizona all year. I'm what word am I looking for here? I've got even a better feeling about them now than I did at the beginning of the year. I can see this team winning 6 games in a row in March. I know they've been inconsistent. I know Washington State owns them. But when they are scoring it, they're as good as anyone in the country. When they're balanced scoring it, they're as good as anyone in the country, I should say. When they're not just relying on Caleb Love. Like in this game, they had 5 guys in double figures. They had 4 guys who scored 19 plus. That's really impressive. When Caleb Love is enforcing shots and he's dishing the ball out, I think this is a top 5 team in the nation. I actually have them 5th right now in my poll, but they're really good. You know who else is good? Jermaine Couisnard for Oregon. He had 39 points in this game. Just unfortunate for him that his team just did not show up outside of him. Good win for Arizona. Oregon officially off the bubble. They're about done. Villanova picked up a huge win at Providence, 71-60. Providence was in our last 4 in as one of the first 4 games, and Villanova was in one of our first 4 out. It just kind of flips them. I think Villanova's in the tournament as of right now. Villanova's now won 5 of 6. They're really talented, believe it or not. I know we've had our criticism of Kyle Neptune. They're really good. They got a lot of talent. Eric Dixon, Justin Moore. This is a team that they were the first 4 team. They'd be a popular pick to make a run to the Sweet 16, as we see every year from the first 4. They're doing a really good job. Good for Kyle Neptune. Good for that Villanova program. Let's move on. USF just continues to win. The number 25 USF, by the way, in the AP poll, visited Charlotte where they were underdogs. You know what USF does at underdogs? They do nothing but win. They won this one by 15, 76-61. Good for Amir Abdul-Rahim. Still getting a lot of comments on why USF is not in have a good case as an at-large bid, but they do not, quite frankly, right now. I think if they were to win everything and then lose in the conference title game to, say, an FAU or even a Memphis, maybe even a North Texas, then maybe. I still doubt it. I don't think that their resume, I mean, they had a rough non-conference, let's just say that. Don't go look up their wins or their losses in the non-conference because it was ugly. But, I mean, I understand it. I understand where USF fans are coming from because it's a new coach, it's a new program, and they took a while to gel, and yes, that's true, but it's still just, from what the committee uses as their resume, it's not great, but good for USF. American League champions. Incredible stuff. Out of the Ivy League, Cornell went and visited Princeton. Princeton beat them 79-77. This was a battle of first-place teams, including Yale. Yale was also tied for first. But this moves Princeton with Yale beating Harvard. They're now tied for first. Cornell drops to a game back. Good stuff for Princeton. I really hope we are able to see them in March. Xavier Lee, they got some serious talent there. And then VCU visited Richmond. Richmond won the game 79-76. Richmond still has a one-game lead in the A10. Their one-game lead over Loyola, 2 games over Dayton, with just 2 to play. 2 games left, 1-game lead, 2 games left in the A10. Richmond win one more game, and you got at least a share of the A10 title. Good stuff for them. The only game we're going to talk about on Sunday was, because it's probably 2 teams that should be in the tournament, I would think. Seton Hall a little close. They visited number 3 UConn. UConn beat them 91-61, just pure domination. Just like Purdue, UConn, we have as a lock for a 1 seed right now. Houston's resume is just a little bit worse than, picking threads here. Like it is so close. But it is Purdue, and then it is UConn, and then it is Houston in terms of resume. I personally think Houston's the best team in the country, and they're number 1 in the AP poll. But in terms of resume, what the committee uses, UConn and Purdue have both locks as number 1 seed. It's clinched UConn a Big East title. Congrats to them. Seton Hall we still have as a last 4 bye. You're not expected to go win at UConn, at who's been in the number 1 in the AP poll for a while. But to lose by 30 does just hurt their metrics a little bit. But still hanging on. Good for UConn. Now, as we noted, we're recording this on a Monday night, so we're not going to talk about any of the Monday games that are going on right now. That is, Texas visits Baylor tonight, and Duke and North Carolina State are playing right now. So we don't know what those results are going to be, but you will know in the morning. So just wanted to note we're not going to talk about that. That's it for our results from the week. We had a very busy week. Let's move in to the AP poll discussion, and then we're going to talk about some of the upcoming games to watch, of course. But first, let's get a quick ad from Amazon and eBay. Let's start with Amazon. If you're like me, you gotta play the best golf ball, but it is hard to find Pro V1s, whether that's at Dick's Sporting Goods, whether that's at Golf Galaxy, whether that's at your local golf shop. They sell out very quickly. Now you can order Pro V1s directly to your door through Amazon. Why go fight the traffic and the crowds when you can have Pro V1s delivered right to your house? Everyone knows Amazon is the leader in delivery service, so why not hop on the trend? It's easy, convenient, guaranteed quick delivery. Stay on your couch, use the link in the description to order Pro V1s or anything you desire directly to your door, whether that is new Pro V1s, used Pro V1s at a slightly cheaper cost. Deliver them right to your door. Amazon. Check out the link in the description. Let's talk about eBay. The weather is starting to get warm. That means it is time for golf season. If you're like me, you love to golf, and what a better way to start off golf season than with brand new equipment. Save up to 50% off on golf equipment with eBay. Don't miss out on this deal. Check out the link in the description to get up to 50% off on all golf equipment. Once again, the link is in the description. Alrighty, let's talk about some of the AP poll discussion. Now, the AP poll just came out, as we mentioned, today. Houston's still number 1. No reason they shouldn't be. UConn did jump Purdue. They are number 2 with Purdue number 3 and Tennessee 4, Arizona 5. Iowa State up to 6. Glad to see them, while Marquette dropped down to 8. Creighton is into the top 10. They're at number 10. But the team we want to talk about is Kansas, down to 14. Haven't been outside the top 10 in a while. Can't quite remember exactly when the last time they were out of the top 10 was, but I know it has been a while. They dropped all the way to 14, with Baylor moving up to 11. Gonzaga, a few other notable teams. Gonzaga moved up to 19. BYU entered again at 20. I think BYU should be a little bit higher, quite frankly. Picked up some big wins. You win at Allen Fieldhouse, which no one does, and then you come back and destroy TCU in a horrible beat, but you pull it out. I think they should have been a little higher, but they are in the AP poll at 20. Utah State at 22. St. Mary's dropped to 23. So as you notice, Gonzaga at 19, St. Mary's 23. USF staying in at 24, and Dayton dropped to 25. They're still in the AP poll as of right now. We retweeted that on our Twitter. It's been out there for a little bit, so hopefully you got a chance to check that out. Just some interesting, notable things there. Dayton still ranked. I wouldn't have them ranked, but they're still there. Let's move on to our games to watch. Now, just another reminder, the Monday games are happening, so we're not going to talk about it. You'll know what the results are in the morning. Let's talk about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Tuesday and Wednesday are the loaded days. At 7 o'clock on Tuesday, Get Peacock, get the subscription. Number 3, Purdue visits number 12, Illinois. Purdue favored by 1 via KenPom. This should be a fun one. This would be, we just mentioned Illinois' best win was at Wisconsin. I mean, you beat Purdue. That's a pretty good win. Wouldn't be surprised if when the line comes out that Illinois is favored. So we'll see what we got going on there. I think Illinois gets it done. I think Coleman Hawkins can stretch out Zach Edey. I think Terrence Shannon, he can frustrate Braden Smith a little bit. I think it's a good matchup. I think Illinois gets the job done. Also at 7 o'clock, number 16, Alabama visits Florida. This game's on ESPN. Alabama favored by 3. I will be taking the underdog again in this scenario. I'll be taking Florida to cover the 3 and to win the game outright. Alabama and Florida played earlier this year, and Florida took them to overtime at Alabama. I think they get the job done at home for sure. Florida kind of just dropped out of the AP poll, so I think they'll win this game and get right back in there. Moving on at 9 o'clock, Kansas State visits number 14, Kansas. We mentioned Kansas State season hanging on by a thread. They're probably going to need to beat number 14, Kansas, at Kansas, who just suffered 2 straight losses, which they don't do very often. A very mad Kansas team with Kevin McCullough back. They're favored by 9, and I'm taking them minus the 9 for all those reasons. Game's on ESPN if you want to check it out. At 11 o'clock, we always got to mention some Mountain West games. Nevada visits Boise State. Both teams kind of came into the season in the Mountain West kind of just flying under the radar. It was San Diego State, Utah State, Colorado State as the teams where you're like, yeah, they've got some stuff. Even New Mexico, they've got some stuff going for them. And then Nevada and Boise State have been surprising. They've been playing extremely well as of late. Should be a fun matchup. Boise State favored by 4. This game's on FS1. Reminder at 11 o'clock, so it's a late night one. Boise State minus 4. I think Boise State is playing incredibly well right now. I'll take Boise State to cover the 4 in this one. I think they got it. Moving that also at 11 o'clock, the other team tied with Boise State atop the standings. Number 21, San Diego State, visiting UNLV. This game's on CBS Sports Network. San Diego State favored by 3 via KenPom. Top 2 teams with very, very tough opponents in this. It's Boise State and Utah State. Don't know why I said that. San Diego State is a game back, but San Diego State favored by 3, and UNLV, we mentioned, that's the trip-up game. UNLV has been beating teams like it's just their business to just screw up some resumes. UNLV is they're ahead of Colorado State in the Mountain West standings, so this is a tough one to pick. I would probably stay away from this one. I'll take UNLV just being at home, and they've shown that they show up to the big games. I'll take UNLV to cover the 3. On Wednesday, another big night, Villanova visits Seton Hall at 6:30 on FS1. Villanova trending in the right direction. Seton Hall still comfortably in. Both teams would be in for us as of right now. Villanova favored by 1 via KenPom, even on the road. Ooh, that's interesting. I think I'll take Seton Hall at home in this one, coming off even that blowout loss at UConn. I think Seton Hall gets the job done in this one. 7 o'clock, another ranked matchup. Number 4, Tennessee visits number 17, South Carolina. This game's on ESPN2. Tennessee favored by 5 via KenPom. You might remember Tennessee lost to South Carolina earlier this year. Ooh, South Carolina still underappreciated. I like my Volunteers this year. I think they're good, and I've gone against South Carolina in just about every game. I think I got to take South Carolina to cover the 5 in this one, though, at home. Tennessee might come out. I think Tennessee has gotten better for sure since that game against South Carolina, so that's why it's a little bit questionable. But at home, I think you got to take South Carolina to keep proving the metrics wrong. I'll take them plus 5. At 7 o'clock, we mentioned this game a little bit earlier, Northwestern at Michigan State. Michigan State needs this one pretty bad. They're favored by 6 via KenPom. This game's on the Big Ten Network. This game means a lot more for Michigan State than Northwestern obviously a road loss at Michigan State wouldn't hurt Northwestern too bad. Michigan State, a home loss, would really put them in danger of missing the tournament this year. For that being said, I think I'll take Michigan State to cover the 6 in that one. At 8 o'clock, number 20, BYU visits number 6, Iowa State. Iowa State favored by 5 via KenPom. This game's on ESPN Plus, unfortunately, or the Big 12 Network, whatever you want to call it. BYU beaten Baylor and Kansas in back-to-back weeks. Can they do it to Iowa State, too? I don't think so. I think I got to take Iowa State minus 5 at home. We've seen Iowa State is basically just non-existent to upsets. They've beaten everyone that they should beat. Being favored, I think I'm going to take them to cover the 5, even though BYU is playing great right now. I think Iowa State's defense frustrates them a little bit. I'll Take Iowa State to cover 5. Then the game of the night at 8:30, number 2 UConn visits number 8 Marquette. This game's on FS1. UConn favored by 2 via KenPom. Interesting to see what this line ends up because I think it just got announced that Tyler Kolek is not going to play in this game. He might not play the rest of the regular season. So if that's the case, UConn will be favored by a little bit more. But we saw that Marquette can play well without Kolek and Iguodaro. I expect Iguodaro to be back, but probably not Kolek. So for that reason, I'll probably take UConn to cover the 2. Just a couple games on Thursday, one game on Friday. 9 o'clock on Thursday, Colorado favored by 1 at Oregon. This game's on ESPN2. Colorado in a must-win scenario here. Oregon also, if they want any chance. I don't think they have any chance whatsoever, but Colorado needs this one bad. We have them. They're fluctuating between our last team in and our first team out. Colorado's going to need this one. I think they get it done in the forest at Oregon's court. I think they cover 1. Check it out on ESPN2. That should be a fun matchup. Also in the Pac-12 at 9 o'clock, number 5 Arizona visits UCLA. UCLA lost a couple games in a row now. Arizona favored by 10. This game is on ESPN. Arizona's looked great. I think UCLA can stay within 10. I think Arizona wins the game, but I'll take UCLA to cover 10 in this one. Friday, last game we're going to talk about, Boise State at number 21 San Diego State at 10 o'clock. San Diego State favored by 5. This game's on FS1. San Diego State, as we mentioned, if they can beat UNLV and Nevada were to beat Boise State, this might be a battle for first/second place, depending on how what Utah State does. Didn't really check. Obviously, they must not play someone great if they're not on this list. I'm trying to remember. I can't. I think they play San Jose State, which they should win. San Jose State is not very good. But I'll take San Diego State to cover the 5 in this game. I think might be a little bit. I think, as I said, if Boise State beats Nevada, I think it might be a little bit of a hangover game. Keep in mind those 2 results when picking this game on Friday. I'll take San Diego State to cover the 5 just for the heck of it, though. That's it. That's our games for the week. Hopefully you enjoyed getting some of the early lines and seeing what the AP poll, how Kansas fell all the way to 14. We thought it was very interesting. Some of the results from last week, we obviously had a huge weekend, so hopefully this gave a little bit of insight. We're almost there. We're almost to Selection Sunday. Under 2 weeks to Selection Sunday, which means conference tournaments are about to start. The ASUN tournament starts actually tonight on Monday night, so obviously you'll know the results of some of those games in the morning, but that just means it's getting closer and closer to being March Madness. Very excited. Before you leave, remember to go down, comment on the poll who you think is more vulnerable to who might be on the biggest upset watch, Dayton or Wisconsin. Neither, both, whatever you're feeling. While you're down there, click the like button. Let us know you're here. Subscribe. Please subscribe. We really appreciate it. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. It's all at Bracket Science with 2 S's. We post on our Instagram, Twitter 3 or 4 times a day just with the games to watch, some of the results, our rankings, just everything. We reposted the AP poll. We do everything, and then TikTok's a little bit different, but we have been getting a lot of outreach there. Really appreciate that. Thanks to everyone for being here. We're almost there. We're almost to March. Bear with us. Almost 2 weeks. Got 2 more weeks of this, and then we'll get into some serious March Madness conversation. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your week. See you later.